Hi there, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jackie, and in this video I'm going to try an acrylic paint pour using a flip cup process. Now if you joined me for my last video, I showed you a flip cup pour using 2 colors and 1 cup. So this time I'm going to get really adventurous. I'm going to try 5 colors and 2 cups. So the 5 colors I'm using are ones I've used before. I have titanium white, aqua green, phthalo blue, turquoise, and oro gold. I've been really happy with these colors. They give me a really beachy feel when I use them. So I'm going to try them again. So the first thing I do is I'm going to do, in each cup, I'm going to add my colors in this order. I'm going to add them in the same order. Some white, white. I'm not going to do as much layering of the colors this time, I don't think, because I'm doing 2 of them. Aqua green. I had some problems with this aqua green in a previous pour. It was all clumpy, and then I've discovered it's just a bit thicker of the paint, so I needed to spend a lot more time stirring it. And when you stir it up really good, it's very smooth now. I don't have any of those clumps. Phthalo blue. Turquoise. Everything's better with turquoise, that's my motto. Especially if you like that beachy feel. I find the aqua green and the turquoise just will take me back to the beach every time. And the gold. This gold has a bit of metallic in it, so you get this tiny bit of shimmer off it. I just love it. Now, I'm going to leave that, and then if I have any blank spots, I've got some left in each cup that I can fill in the blank spots. So now to flip pour, now, when I did this before, I put the thing on top, but this time I can't do that because I've got 2 of them. So I'm just going to flip 1 at this corner and 1 at this corner, and then I'll let it sit for a few seconds before I lift them up. So my plan is to try and get some wavy stripes. So I'm going to swipe this one this way and this one this way in a few seconds. I painted this tile just to see if it makes any difference. This was a tile that had a bit of pattern on it, so I thought I better paint it before I start because it might affect the way the acrylic paint shows through. It might make no difference. In my video where I experimented with tiles, I painted one and I didn't paint the other, and it didn't make any difference. So it's entirely up to you if you want to try this at home. If you have some old leftover tiles, you can decide if you want to paint them or not. Now I'm going to swipe this. Whoops, it didn't come very far. And then, wow, that's really interesting. And then swipe it this way. See what happens here. Interesting. Just let that sit for a few minutes. Now, I think what I'll do here is just do some free pouring with some of my leftover paint here. And see what happens. One of the things about learning a new skill is there's a real freedom with taking the attitude that I'm just learning. It doesn't have to be right. And I'm a bit of a recycler as well, as you know, with my sea glass mosaics. If you've watched my sea glass mosaic projects, you know that I often recycle old frames and old windows. And here I am recycling some old flooring tiles. So it's not wasting a lot, although it is wasting paint and materials that way. And this way, I have some really interesting stuff happening there where I flipped it, so I have to be careful not to tilt that right out of it. If you want to see a list of all the materials that I used in this paint pour, you can check on the link down below in the description. I will post a list of all my ingredients. I've really taken to this paint pouring. It's so interesting. My reason for doing so much of my art is to create art that brings me back to the beach. And I'm just finding the way the colors of paint flow together and create all these interesting patterns. I'm going to have a very interesting egg tray here. I was using the egg tray to prop the tile up, and it's getting covered with drippings of paint. Wow, this is so interesting. And here's colors that are going to carry me back to the beach. That's my goal. So now I'm going to take my butane torch and give this a bit of a swirl with that. I have a bit of a spot right there that's kind of odd. I think I'll do that. And see what happens with this. The heat from the butane torch will help bring out some of the bubbles. Ooh, that's cool. Look at all these tiny little bubbles popping through. Something's going to inspire me for sure with this one. So I'll let that sit for a bit, and then I'll come back to it and show you how it looks after it continues to kind of flow and mix and create some interest. So I let that dry for a bit, and I'm not very pleased with the result. The patterns of color are just fascinating. However, there was something wrong with my white paint in particular because it all kind of ran too thin. And I'm just thinking it's not as intense as it should be. So I did give it another try, and this is what I came out with. And this is so much better. The intensity of the colors are so much better, and it just didn't run as much. So I'm quite pleased with this one. And I did use the same colors, mostly the same colors, a little bit different, but just the way the patterns ran together is so interesting to me. So I'm going to show you what I did to get this one. Probably come out a bit different, but I'll show you the technique I used. So I'm going to make another try at this 2-cup flip pour, and I'm just going to flip these on here, and then I'll explain to you what I've used in these cups of paint. So, same idea as before. So in each of these cups I used phthalo blue and a layer of white, cerulean blue and a layer of white, phthalo green and a layer of white, turquoise and a layer of white. And I've just let them sit there for just a minute. And now I'm going to pull this to stretch. My idea is I want to get some striping of the paints. So I want to pull this one on the top part of the tile and this one on the lower part of the tile. So I'm just going to pull this along and stretch the paint all along there. Didn't stretch as I was hoping. It's all a learning process. And then this one I want to stretch along here. I did a bit better with that one. Wow, those colors look nice together. Now I'm just going to scrape out what's left in here just to drizzle it along a bit. And let's see what I can get. Oh man, these colors are beautiful together. So much white too. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of tipping and stretching. I'm getting all these cells coming out, which is very interesting. I didn't put any silicone in this one. To be honest, I kind of forgot, but it's good to see. Sorry about that. I've got something beeping at me in the background here. Oh man, that's really interesting. It looks like I don't have quite enough paint over here. So I think I'm going to pour a tiny bit of turquoise. And a tiny bit of green. I have quite a bit of blue there, so I don't think I want to go in with more of that. Just a tiny bit. Just to give that a chance to mix in a bit, and then I might blow on it to cover some of that area using a straw. It's kind of boring compared to down here. So I think I need to do something a little bit different. Maybe I need to drizzle some of the leftovers here. There's quite a thick layer of paint on here when you do this. So sometimes when you just kind of drag through the paint, it can create some really interesting patterns. So I kind of like that as well. So I still didn't get the wavy lines that I was expecting, but that's okay. I am getting some beautiful patterns here. I'm thinking that when these dry, I'm going to have a fair amount of inspiration to do some of my mixed media acrylic paint pour with sea glass art. I'll try and get a little bit of blue in that corner as well, just for interest. Now if I just let that sit, I think it's going to run a little bit more, and I might tilt it a tiny bit just to get a bit more movement in the paint. I would highly recommend this color combination to get that take me back to the beach feel. Look at those colors, they're just spectacular. This is interesting. So I'll let that sit for a bit and show you what I get. So I really wasn't happy with the result of the paint pour on this piece, but I didn't want to trash it. So I thought I'm going to play around with it and do some lettering and see how it works out. So I used these Faber-Castell artist pens, black, and I wrote Sea Glass Art by Jackie. And I thought this will be good to use for a sign to put up where I display my sea glass art. And I'm also going to do a little bit of sea glass on it. So I have my Quick Seal Kitchen and Bath adhesive caulking that I use for an adhesive. And I'm going to put an Inukshuk down here at the bottom. There's this spot here that there's a spall too. And I'm going to cover that up. That's one good thing about putting sea glass on top of your paintings like this. You can cover up any issues. So I often put, well, I shouldn't say often, I always put an Inukshuk in my sea glass mosaic pieces, because to me an inukshuk is a sign that I've been here. And a reminder to us all that we need to be aware of the mark we leave behind us when we go through this world. And one of the marks that I'm leaving behind me is my art. So I thought an inukshuk on this, where it says Sea Glass Art by Jackie, is an appropriate inclusion. And I'm also going to put a flower up here at the top. So I have a green piece here, and I have 6 triangular pieces of sea glass to make a little flower. And I think it's just that extra touch of sea glass on something like this that gives it a little bit more interest, a little bit more beach feel, because that's what I'm all about here, is the whole beach vibe. What can you do with your art to help take myself or people that look at it back to the beach? So sea glass does that. So this piece makes me think of a stream, and this darker bit in the middle to me looks like the darker, deeper area of the stream where the current flows. So I decided I would do a school of salmon trying to swim upstream. You know how salmon swim upstream to lay their eggs or whatever? And so I thought I'm going to use some brown sea glass to create these images of salmon swimming up the stream. And although I often work in odd numbers, I thought 6 salmon is the number that I am going to make. Don't ask me why 6, but for me that's what felt right for this piece. So I am going to have 6 salmon swimming up the stream, swimming against this current. I really enjoy the process of gluing sea glass on. I find it so relaxing. So this few little pieces of sea glass here, as you can see, doing a little bit of embellishment like this is not a very time-consuming process. The most time-consuming part for me is looking at the paint pour and trying to decide what suits. But once you go to glue the pieces on, only takes a few seconds. So I spent a fair amount of time looking at this one, trying to figure out what it meant to me. And then all of a sudden I thought butterfly wing, like a really zoomed up look at one wing of the butterfly, just like one half of it. And then this is the background. So this part here is all part of the butterfly's wing. So once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. So I decided what I was going to do was use some brown sea glass to make the body of the butterfly. You know how the bodies of butterflies are fairly distinct in the middle. So this is the middle of the butterfly. So I'm going to put a row of brown sea glass along here in 3 different sections to represent the body of the butterfly. And then I thought I would use some white sea glass just to add some more detail to the wings, just to kind of make them stand out a little bit. So this is really interesting to me. The colors in this are just spectacular. So then I played around with a bunch of my white sea glass. I have to put these on before I glue them because I have to make sure they all represent the spots on the butterfly accurately. You've got all of these spectacular colors, and then just by adding a few little details of sea glass, it gives you kind of like the dewdrops on the wing, or those interesting close-up details on a butterfly's wing. I just think that adds so much. So I'm really intrigued by this one. So my lesson of the day for this video is to use your art to take you back to the beach. So this butterfly really takes me back to the beach. I'm just going to zoom in so you can take a closer look at some of the details that the paint created here. It's not so much the butterfly that takes me back to the beach, but the color. All those greens and blues and whites all mixed in there, and the bubbles and the movement. That to me speaks of the beach. So anytime a piece of art can take me back to the beach, I have to score it a success. So thanks so much for joining me for this video. I hope you found it really informative and you really enjoyed watching how those colors work together to create a really good feeling of being at the beach. Sort of that combination of paint and sea glass. And until next time, I hope you make it out to the beach and happy sea glass hunting.